Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gagnon Atelier. I'm your old pal, Tim Gagnon, and this is the Modern Masters Podcast. Well, everybody, welcome to the show. Boy, oh boy, do we got a great one for you today. I am very excited. You know, it's not every day you get to talk to your heroes. And today I have got one of my absolute art heroes. I have been following his career since I discovered him in the early 90s. You know, I was raised up north, up in Berlin, New Hampshire, a little tiny town. And you know, it's a small town. I was, and I'll admit, I was a very naive young man. And so I got stationed down here in Panama City Beach, Florida, actually in a little town that way called Callaway. And I was stationed at Tyndall Air Force Base. And I remember, you know, I had no life experience. I was 19 years old. I barely shaved. I didn't know anything. And I met my flight commander, and my flight commander said, "I'm a Baptist. What are you?" And I said to him, "I'm French." Yeah, I know. It's just duh. Because I had never heard the word Baptist before. I didn't know what a Baptist was. And so he looked at me like I had two heads, probably the way you're looking at me right now. And he said, "No, I'm a Baptist. I'm a Southern Baptist." And I said, "Yeah, I'm French Canadian. My family hails from Quebec, and then they settled in New Hampshire, blah, 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 blah." And he looked at me like I was crazy. So living in the South, in the Bible Belt, it was a big culture shock for me at first. And I found these things called Christian bookstores. And if you ever have set foot in a Christian bookstore, you will recognize our guests' stuff. And so I'm really excited to show you some of his artwork. I'm going to show you some of his artwork now because, again, if you have ever in your life set foot in a Christian bookstore, you will recognize the artwork of Thomas Blackshear. Here are some of his most famous paintings from way back in the day. These are older paintings from the 90s, but these are two of his very, very well-known paintings. And again, if you've ever set foot in a Christian bookstore, you saw these being sold as prints and calendars and posters and everything in between. And so check that out. How awesome are those paintings too? So he's going to be our guest today. But before we do that, guys, if you could do me a favor, and if you could like this broadcast, if you are watching us on Facebook, and of course, if you can share this show with all of your friends, that would be great. I would really appreciate that. Also, guys, go over to YouTube and do a little type in the search engine and type in Gagnon Atelier into YouTube, and you will find our channel. Please hit the subscribe button to that and the notification bell. That would really, really help us out. Every single broadcast that we've ever done of the Modern Masters Podcast has been archived on our YouTube channel. So you can go back and watch all of the absolutely fabulous, incredible artists that we have interviewed over the last year. And so if you could do that, I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And so again, if you liked our banners and all of our graphics, we have got a bunch of things going on. We have a brand new website now, finally. Finally, we got our website up. If you go to thegagnonatelier.com, you can see our website. And that website was made by the company Faso, which is like a special web hosting company that's just for artists. But we've had some help with that, putting it together, and also with our SEO stuff and with our graphics and different things. And our friends over at edgedigital.agency are the people that help us out with our graphics needs and our digital marketing needs and things like that. And they are the sponsor of this show. And so they've got a special offer just for you. I can vouch for them because we use them here. They're a huge help with us on so many things. I've been working with Lucas and his team for a long time. So let's check out that real quick.
Hey guys, this is Judah with Edge Digital Agency. we want to offer something special to the friends and family of Gagnon Atelier, our digital diagnostic. In this free consultation, we equip you with the tools and strategies you need to maximize your online impact. For example, your website needs to wow customers and serve them well, but it also needs to rank high on search engines like Google, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Visit us today at edgedigital.agency, and when you reach out, make sure to mention that you saw us on one of Tim's videos. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you.
All right, guys. So again, check out my buddies over here. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, over there. I know what I'm doing. Boom, right there over at edgedigital.agency. They'll be great to help you out. And if you mention your old pal Tim, they've got some special offers just for you. So with that said, guys, let's bring on our guest. I'm excited. It's making me talk French slang. Well, I better watch out. I may start saying French words that I shouldn't say. Because in my world, when I say, excuse my French, it's probably actually French. But anyway, let's bring on our guest. I'm super excited. You're going to love him. Here he is, Thomas Blackshear. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. There are no words. You might have heard a little bit before I brought you on. I discovered you in probably 1992.
92, okay.
Yeah, about 1992. I was a young airman. I had maybe one stripe on my arm. I would just gotten married, and my wife and I went into a Christian bookstore, and we saw some of your paintings on the walls. And being an artist, I was actually they called it a graphic specialist, which is it's a graphic designer and artist for the military. Yeah. And so we did, I was an artist in the military, and had big dreams of being a big famous artist one day. And I saw your artwork, and my brain exploded. It just exploded, and I
hope not.
Oh yeah. Well, I get excited. I'm a pretty excitable guy, but I saw that artwork and I just fell in love. I was just like, who is this? Who made this? And I had to find out. And so I started, and that was before the internet was really a thing. So, it was tough to figure out who you were and anything else, but I got some information, and I learned about you and got to learn more about your artwork. And my gosh, I became a big fan. There are certain artists that have really influenced me over the years. Julie Bell, Boris Vallejo, Joe Jusko, Frank Frazetta, and Thomas Blackshear.
Oh man, that's what an honor. What an honor for you to even put me in the same category. So thank you. Yeah.
Well, we're going to be showing off your work here real soon, but yeah, people I think are going to agree with me when they see your work. The skill is just phenomenal, and you have such a unique look to it. It just one of the things I love about artists is your artwork. I can find your artwork, and I know exactly who did it. It's just like, that's Thomas Blackshear right there. And that, I think, is that's a great thing to have. You found your voice a long time ago, and it's loud and clear, and that's really, really a great thing. So
it took me some time, though. I remember when I was trying to find, it's kind of funny when young artists are always trying to find their look, their style. And what's so interesting about it is when you finally find it, you realize it was always there. You just might not have seen it, but everybody else saw it. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think when we're young artists, we tend to model our artwork so much after our heroes that we're, instead of finding our own voice. And so that can sometimes be, because the worst thing you can be is a clone artist.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that helped me get to where I am now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I was starting out as an illustrator, I never thought I was going to become known off of my artwork because I didn't think it was that great. So what I did was I imitated all of the top illustrators I admired. And so not only in imitating them, but I learned how to do a look that was close to what they did. Now, if the procedure that I went through was the same one that they used, I mean, I don't know for sure if they did or not, but let's just put it like this. I got something that looked like that's what they did. And so I studied how to do that. So I learned how to dissect paintings. Then, of course, I guess some people know that I was the apprentice of Mark English. And of course, when I met Mark and he taught me his style, man, I thought I was in heaven, man. And, you know, I did all I could to learn as much as I could. I mean, Mark English, I guess we'll get into that, but he taught me so much. Yeah, no, it took me a while to figure out who I was as an artist. But what happened was, because I learned so many different techniques, as time went on, I finally morphed into me. And so, you know, but I picked, you know, I grabbed from everybody, every type of artist. I mean, comic book illustrators, painters, you know, architectural renderers. Man, I look at everything. So, yeah.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. So, well, let's talk a little about that. How did you get your start? You know, what did you go to school for art? Did you get a degree in art, or did you just dive into a career? You mentioned Mark English. Were there some other art mentors along the way before him or after him that influenced you?
Honestly speaking, the only artist that interested me when I was a kid was Walt Disney. I always wanted to work for Walt Disney Studios. And I was just so amazed by what he had created, and the cartoons and everything, and the characters, and fantasy. I don't know. I thank God for imagination, because that helped me throughout my life. I know when I was young, my parents got a divorce, and, you know, going through that real hard time and stuff like that, just a fantasy and just getting lost in it, and you know, just kind of shutting everything else out and just dreaming and going places and thinking about things that I could create that most people have never even thought about creating, and trying to see what I could do about that. I started early on. You know, of course, I drew. I think my parents found out that I had talent when I was around 4 years old. And then when I got into elementary school and stuff, I think I was around 12. I got Play-Doh, and I just started sculpting, and I loved sculpting. And then I started doing everything I could with it. I started learning how to do paper mache, and then I started making my own characters. And then when I was a little kid, we moved to Atlanta. My father was in the Air Force. Moved to Atlanta, and that's where I grew up. And all the kids on the block there, you know, after, you know, other than playing sports, a lot of them were into making, you know, how kids used to make model cars and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All the kids on my block made model monsters. And
Oh.
I really got into that, Jack. And then I became the best model maker on the block, because I knew how to paint them better than the rest of them and all that. And then I just kept doing that. And then I graduated from the models to a point after I got a lot older that I said, well, wait a minute, I can make my own. And then I got into ceramics, and I started making my own sculptures. And in high school, I had a really good art teacher, and he just let me do what I did. And I just started making all these little characters and creatures and dragons and knights fighting dragons, King Kong. I go ape for King Kong. So I was doing all kind of stuff like that. And then I just kept growing and growing and growing and learning as much as I could. When I was in high school, that's when I decided I wanted to be an illustrator. And the reason why I wanted to be an illustrator was because, first of all, I didn't want to be a starving artist. And, and then, you know, one thing I noticed is when I looked at a lot of famous illustrators, their skill level seemed to me, seemed to be a lot better than a lot of fine artists that I had met. And then, of course, you get into learning about people like Norman Rockwell, who, I mean, come on, he's the tops. America. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what contemporary artist illustrator do you know who's better than Norman Rockwell? I mean, come on. Yeah. But anyway, so that's what I decided I wanted to do. So from there, Went to school. I got a scholarship at the Chicago Institute of Art. At the time in Atlanta, there was not a lot of stuff going on. There was just one museum and they had an art school there, but it wasn't a lot. So I found out about the Chicago Institute. I got a scholarship there, went there, fresh out of high school, and started learning about life and the reality of life and going to college, art school, whatever. And after being there, I was real disappointed because I just wasn't learning or getting what I was thinking I wanted to get as an illustrator. And the Art Institute wasn't the kind of school I wanted to be in because they were more into trying to help you find yourself as an artist on the inside than they were teaching you the skill of being a good artist. And
a lot of artists, you know, that are my age and up have had that experience in college where it's like when you were learning about, you know, you wanted to go to college to learn realism, and they would push you away from that. They would say, "Oh, that's art from the past. Nobody does art that way anymore." And it was all about, you know, modern art, and it was all about all these different forms of art. And a lot of artists that were interested in a realism technique or being illustrators and things like that, just the colleges were pushing them away from that. Now, thank goodness nowadays, you know, when I got my master's, boy, I felt like I was practically in an Atelier program, you know, with the realism focus that I had on my art and all the instructions. So you were getting disillusioned at college. I hear that way too often. So keep going with
I was only there for a year at the Chicago Institute of Art, but I had heard about this school that was a few blocks away called the American Academy of Art in Chicago. And I had met a guy the day before I left to go to school at the Chicago Institute. I met a guy who went to the American Academy of Art, and he told me, make sure you go and visit the American Academy of Art and look up a friend of mine that I went to school with. I want you to just say hello for me. And I said, well, cool. So, you know, being disillusioned going to the Chicago Institute of Art, I decided, okay, I'm going to go and find this school and see what it's about. When I got to that school and looked around the walls, I was so upset because their first year students' artwork was better than the graduate students' artwork at the Chicago Institute of Art.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my goodness. I said, I'm in the wrong place, you know, because, you know, the Chicago Institute of Art lives off a bigger reputation, you know.
Right.
I was like, no, I got it. So I met the guy, I met the teacher. His name was Mike Desetnik. And I showed him my portfolio, and I guess he was so impressed with what I showed him. He took me in to meet the dean of the school, who was Irvin Shapiro. Irvin Shapiro was a very famous watercolor artist, and he looked at my portfolio, and he gave me a free 10-week scholarship to go to the school. And that's how I started going to the school. And after the 10-week scholarship, it was around that time it was time to go back home for the summer. I went back to Atlanta, and I was determined, I'm not going back to the Chicago Institute of Art. I don't care what kind of scholarship they gave me. I said, I'm not going back there because I wasn't learning it. So I was going to do whatever I could to try to get to go to the American Academy of Art. And thank God, and it really was a blessing, this competition came up for college students. I entered this competition and I won this scholarship. And so this competition allowed me to have the money to go to the American Academy of Art and pay for my tuition for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's, so, I mean, it was really a lesson from God. I mean, because, you know, how many people go to art school or school period and have it paid for pretty much? You know, other than the fact, I mean, for the tuition was paid for, I still had to live in and all that stuff. But anyway, so I went there, and man, that was the best decision I could have made. And I really learned all about color composition design, learning different tools, learning about different illustrators. You know, I started learning about people like all the tops, Bernie Fuchs, Mark English, Bob Peak. And then, you know, got into illustration. I took figure drawing and illustration, and The only thing I regretted leaving art school that I didn't take, the only course I didn't take a course in design. And a few years later, I realized how important that was. But, you know, it didn't matter because I made up for it from that point. But anyway, was there for 3 years. I got recruited by Hallmark Cards, me and another friend of mine. Her name was Judy Galen. We were the only two from the American Academy of Art that year who got recruited by Hallmark. Went to Hallmark, was there for 1 year. I happened, believe it or not, to meet Bernie Fuchs and Mark English a few months before I was to go to work at Hallmark. And we met him at a big agency. I forget the name right now, but it was a very big firm in Chicago. And we met him, and we were talking to Mark and Bernie Fuchs, and we were asking him, well, what are you all doing now? And Mark said, well, I'm on my way to Kansas City, Missouri. And I said, well, what are you going there for? And he said, I'm going to be working at Hallmark Cards. And everybody looked at me and said, he's going to Hallmark Cards. And he said, oh, you are? I said, yeah. He said, yes, I'm going to be teaching a class there for the artists. I said, really? And he said, yeah. He said, when you get there, look me up. I said, I will. So, of course, when I had a choice between working for Ralph Bakshi, who was working on Fire and Ice with Frank Frazetta,
Right.
or go to the Kansas City Hallmark Cards. And I really struggled with that. But I really wanted to learn from Mark. But man, come on, working with Frank Frazetta, boy.
Yeah, and I want to say that Thomas, what was his name? James Gurney.
Okay.
And
Thomas
Kincaid.
Okay, there you go.
They worked on that movie as background artists.
Okay.
That's where they got their start.
Yeah. Well, see, I had a meeting with Ralph Bakshi, and he met me, and he said, I want you working on my movie with me. And so that's why I was trying to decide. So I called him up and I said, look, if I was to delay coming out there to work with you on that movie for 1 year, would you still let me work for you after 1 year? And, you know, he's like, if that's what you really want to do. And I said, so you would still let me work for you? He said, yes, I would. I said, okay, well, I'm going to go to Hallmark then. So that's how I went to Hallmark, got there, and couldn't wait to get into Mark English's class. The problem was there was a waiting list, and I couldn't get in there for 3 months.
Oh, no.
I was really, really, really disappointed, you know. So anyway, after 3 months, got into his class, and man, you know, I was just so excited. And so we tried to talk him into doing a demonstration. He said, well, you really don't want to see a demonstration. So yes, we do.
Yeah.
You know, and so he looked at the class and said, you all really want to see me do it? I said, yes. And so he said, okay, I guess I'll do a demonstration. And I was like, oh my God. I said, man, I can't wait. Because I always knew that if I saw what he did, I just knew I could do it. I just knew it. And so he did his demonstration. And we were in that class for, I don't know, about a month, or I think it's about a month. And we only had to do one illustration within that period. But I was so excited. Right after I saw him do that, man, I just took off and started working on my illustration. And I tried it the first time, messed up, went and asked him what I did wrong. He gave me some pointers. I went back and redid the thing. A week later, I came back and I said, he's sitting there talking to everybody else while they're still trying to get their ideas together. And I said to him, well, I got my painting done. And he's like, what? I said, I got my painting done. And he said, well, let me see it. I said, okay. And I passed it up to him. I took it up to him. And he looked at it. And I went back and sat in my chair. And he looked at it. Then he looked at me and he said, what did you say your name was again? And I said, Thomas Blackshear. And he said, oh, okay. And then he looked at the piece. Very nice. Very nice. And he just kept looking at it, And then everybody said, well, can we see it? And he said, oh, okay, yeah. And he passed it around, let everybody see it. Then when it got to the last person, he said, let me see it again. Let me see it again. And they brought it back up to him. And he just looked at it. Very nice, very nice. So I was so excited about that. I went ahead and did another painting for the class. And then about, I think it was a week, or maybe it was a couple of weeks after that, he asked me after class, would you consider becoming my apprentice? And man, I was on cloud nine, boy. I mean, come on, Mark English asking me to become his apprentice. So I had two jobs. I worked for Mark English at night, like anywhere from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
And work for Hallmark in the daytime. That's what I did for the rest of my time at Hallmark. I was there for 1 year, and I left a year later on the same day I started.
Wow.
And then after that, and let's see, after I went there, I think I went out to California, and that was a really hard time. I wanted to be a special effects artist, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't really find anything at the time. But anyway, I ended up getting a chance to work for Disney. But while I was there in the meeting with all of the old animators who wanted me to work for them, I asked them, can I freelance? They said, no, if you take this job, you can't freelance on your own time. I thought that was kind of weird. And I was like, well, if that's the case, I guess I'm not going to take the job. And they were so disappointed. You could see it on their faces. And I just said, I'd rather be stay freelancing and stuff. So went back home to Atlanta. I get a call from Mark English. Said, Thomas, I got a job that's coming in and I can't do it if you don't help me. Would you be willing to come? I'll pay your plane ticket up here and I'll give you a certain amount of money to help me do it. I said, where's the ticket? And went back to work for him. And from that point on was his apprentice. I lived with him and his family for 3 months. And I was his apprentice and I learned so much. From there, I took a job at Godbold Richter Studios, became the head illustrator. I was there for a couple of years. And then I think it was in 1982, I became a freelancer, and I was a freelancer for 14 years. From being a freelancer for 14 years, I moved on from illustration and got into the collectible industry. And, then I did the first Star Wars collector's plate, and that's what helped me get into the collectible industry. Then during that time, after I did that, I decided that I didn't want to do illustration no more. I was at the peak of my career, and the routine of doing a job, get paid, do a job, get paid. I said, is this what the rest of my life is going to look like? I said, And I was losing the love of the artwork again. And because I was losing the love, I hated that. And I went through a 3-year depression. And after,
was it just the monotony, or was it, you working for other people and doing their vision? Or, I mean, what was it that caused you to just like lose the desire for it? Or was it workload?
In all honesty, I realize now what it was I had a hard time because we all go through a period of time when we become young adults where we have to leave the past behind and move into our future. And I love the part about moving to my future, but everything in my past that I held dear, I was having problems, that my mom was having problems. My old friends that I loved and adored, I left and moved to another city. Everything was changing. All the people I was meeting were new people. And I was regretting what I was leaving behind because I knew it would never be the same. That helped put me into a depression. I was at the top of my game as an illustrator, one of the tops in the nation, making big money. It didn't mean nothing when I went through that depression. And like I said, went through this thing for 3 years. And my ex-wife came to visit me as an old girlfriend, and she was trying to get a job moving to San Francisco because I was living in California at the time. And she was having problems getting a job, and she was complaining, because on her interviews, stuff that was not happening for her. And she didn't know I was going through a depression, and she was complaining so much. I just said, look, you've been complaining all week long. And I said, I'm going through something that I can't even talk to people about because I don't even understand it myself. And she said, well, what are you going through? I said, well, I'm going through a depression. I've been in this thing for 3 years, this funk, I cannot shake it. I said, nothing means anything to me. I've lost everything, every desire, everything that brought me joy is gone. This work doesn't even mean anything. This money doesn't mean anything. And I said, I've lost the love for doing art. I said, the only thing I have is the faith to know that Jesus is going to help me through this. That's what I said to her. And when I said those words, I thought about what I said. And when I thought about what I said, it hit me. Jesus is all I got. Jesus is all I need. And all of a sudden, this thing comes right off me, right there in front of her. And I was like crying, because I was like, I went through that hell for 3 years. And when I came to that understanding, this thing just comes off of me. And I started laughing and crying at the same time and saying, man, if I knew this 3 years ago, this thing would have been, I could have been rid of it 3 years ago.
It's amazing, the power of the name of Jesus.
There you go, man. I'm telling you, that's what happened. And so after that time, left Kansas City. I mean, eventually I married her, and we moved from California to here to Colorado Springs,
Right.
Colorado. And I started doing the Christian prints and what you're talking about.
Right, and that's when I discovered you. And
yeah, okay.
You were in that era, yeah.
And then doing the Christian prints. One of the best things that happened with that, I started getting a royalty. Well, even before I started getting a royalty, well, yeah, I was getting a royalty there, but also I was getting a royalty doing the collector's plates. And that got me into the collectible business that changed everything. And when I got into the collector's industry, what was so cool about that, everything I did, I have 4 different streams of income coming in through royalties. And that's how I lived. And I mean, I was on the top, man. I was making all this money I was doing. I mean, it was pretty amazing. I had the #1 selling black figurine in the nation, Ebony Visions.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the #1 selling black figurine in the nation for 20 years. Wow. And so, you know, everything was going really well, and I was doing very well at the top of my game and everything. And then, of course, probably the worst time in my life hit, which was about 6 years ago. Went through a very, very bad divorce. At the same time I was going through the divorce, the plate company that owned my figurine line sued me. Because what happened was I did not renew my contract with them. My contract came to an end, mm-hmm. and I decided not to renew it, which was my choice. And because I didn't renew it, and I guess because they were making a lot of money off me, they got mad and they came in with a bogus way to sue me. And they put me through hell for 3 years. Unfortunately, they did it at the same time I was going through this crazy divorce. And so it was the worst time of my life. I hit rock bottom. Everything was taken away from me, everything. So basically, I am starting over. I'm in the period of starting over now, meaning that all that stuff was taken from me. And so now I'm a Western painter. Thank God. My buddy Morgan Weisling, one of the best Western painters out there, came to me in January 1st, 2016, contacted me and said, Thomas, you've been on my mind. There's a shift going on in the Western market. I have always felt that if you ever wanted to get into this market, you would do very well. I'm calling to let you know anything I can do to help you get into the market, whether it's introducing you to people, meeting museums, trying to get in shows, helping you with your website, whatever I can do, I'm willing to do it. And I said, well, what do you want me to do, Morgan? He said, I want you to paint. He said, I'll just keep in touch with you throughout the year. And then the next year, when I go to the Gene Autry Masters of the West show that I'm in every year, I want to take you with me as my guest and introduce you to people. I said, fine. That's what we did. Went to that show. I had never been to a big Western art show, and walking around, and he introduced me to Mary Von Leschy, and she was the one who owned Trailside Galleries, and she had never heard of me before, but I had a little portfolio. I showed it to her. She looked at me and said, are you going to be here tomorrow? I said, yes, I will. She said, we'll talk tomorrow. I said, fine. The next day, she called me over while she was having lunch, said, come over and talk to me. Tell me about yourself. And we had a conversation for about 45 minutes. And she looked at me and said, okay, I want you in my gallery. I was like, okay.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the beautiful thing. It's like sometimes in life, I mean, I've been exactly where you described, going through a nasty divorce and then having to reset your life.
Yeah.
You don't when it's like I was married 20 years when I had my divorce, and it was like, what, and the last time I was single, I was in high school. So I didn't know what to do. It's like last time I was single, I was 17 years old. What am I going to do here? I don't know what I'm doing. And so it was a terrible time, but God has a way of bringing restoration. He's the God of restoration. And so it's amazing how, it's cliche, but in a way it's true. One door closes, another one opens, And so speaking of that, let's look at some of your artwork, and we'll start with that Western art.
Okay.
That you've got. And I've got one piece of Western art here that I just, wow. Tell us about this, and tell us a little bit about your process, because there's something so unique about this, and it's very different from the other artwork that I've seen you do in the past in this technique that you do gilding. And I am a huge gold leaf fan. I paint pretty much only over gold leaf. I gild everything and then I paint over gold. And I don't think I've painted not on gold leaf. I can't remember the last time. So let's take a look at this piece of artwork and tell us about this glorious piece here. Look at that. Oh.
The name of this piece is called Buffalo Hunt. And it's when I started getting into the Western art market, because I wanted to make an impact. I mean, come on, there's so many good Western artists out there. And I mean, here I am coming in and nobody knows who I am in these museums and at these shows and stuff. So, I mean, some of the artists knew, but the people in charge, the museum curators, the collectors, they didn't know who I was or anything. So anyway, so I'm trying to make an impact. So I'm saying to myself, okay, what can I do to stand out from everybody else? Because in the Western art market, there's only so many types of paintings you could do. I mean, it's Western. I mean, come on. In, Native American Indians, cowboys, vistas and plateaus and cactus and clouds and cattle and horses. I mean, other than that, you got to figure out how to do it differently. So I'm saying to myself, what can I do to stand out? I said, well, Maynard Dixon started a look that was basically based on Art Deco, but he brought Art Deco with the Western theme and came up with a completely different look. And everybody loves Maynard Dixon. A lot of Western artists love Maynard Dixon. And I said, okay, I've never seen anybody take Art Nouveau and combine it with the Western theme. So I said, that's what I'm gonna do. And so I came up with this name. I coined it Western Nouveau. And it's
Western Nouveau. I
Western
love it.
Nouveau, and it's taken off now, and that's what I'm known as the guy who does Western Nouveau now. And so what I decided to do was everything has that feeling of Nouveau and that flair, but it's also got that feeling of some of the iconic murals that I've seen in New York City that were done with Art Deco, and I love the way they would use gold leaf in some of these sculptures and stuff, and these reliefs they would do, even some paintings. I learned and I got the idea for doing gold leaf and paintings, of course, from Gustav Klimt, which I learned from Mark English, because he used Gustav Klimt to help him with some of his design work and stuff. And I didn't even know who Gustav Klimt was until Mark told me about it. So because of that, and I love the way he used the gold leaf, I said, okay, I want to try starting doing that. So the difference between what I do and what Gustav Klimt did, he would directly put gold leaf on the canvas. I don't like doing that because I don't like the texture of the canvas coming through the gold leaf.
Right.
So I go through a different process, which is the burnishing process, which is the same process that framers use to make frames. So what they do is they put burnishing clay on top of frames. They paint it on, and they have to paint it where it gets thick enough. And once it gets thick, I think it's an eighth of an inch to a 16th of an inch thick. Once they have it thick enough, then they are ready to apply the gold leaf. Then they put a glue solution that they put on top of the burnishing clay once it's done. Then they could apply the gold leaf. And so that's how I did this. The only difference is the hair and the mane on this horse it's a relief. It's got dimension to it. And the way I did that, I built it up with layers of cardboard. So I did the design of the hair, the mane, cut it out in cardboard, glued pieces, because some of the pieces are on top of the pieces to give it the dimension. Glued it together, glued it on the canvas, glued the other pieces on top, then took burnishing clay and painted on top of it, and kept painting it on it till it got thick enough, then sanded it down to make it smooth and everything, and then it was ready to paint the gold leaf. Put on the gold leaf. Once you apply the gold leaf, then it's time to paint. And then from that point on, you do the oil painting around the gold leaf. And that's the process. I mean, it takes a while to do, but I like the effect.
Oh, it's so worth it, dude. It's gorgeous. I absolutely. It's just melting my brain. It's so wonderful. I'm staring at the tail, and it's just, it's absolutely fabulous. And I just love the juxtaposition between the realism and then the stylized look, that Nouveau look you've got. I mean, it blows my mind. I just absolutely love the contrast between the two. This is such a great look. And I can see why now you're becoming the guy in Western art when it comes to this. It's just, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Well, there are three different styles I do. I do representational, which is the realistic look. Then I do stylized, which is just taking something realistic and tweaking it a little bit, where you add a little design to it, or abstract design to it, or whatever. And then I do decorative, and decorative is where I usually put the gold leaf on there and stuff. So those are three different styles I use. The reason why I do those three different styles, I get bored doing the same thing over and over again, and I wanted to make sure that when I came out to the public as a Western artist, I didn't want anybody pegging me and saying, "Oh, well, that's not a Thomas Blackshear. He only does this." I said, let me do everything I do in the beginning, so people can't ever say that's not a Thomas Blackshear. So I can do whatever I want when I want. So that's
right. That's a good. And now this next slide that I want to show you, there are two pictures here. One is a Western piece and one is not, but I think it goes into what you're talking about, using the different styles in your artwork. So let me show this one and talk to us about these two paintings.
Well, the reason I told you I wanted to talk to you about the one that is on the the left. The one on the left side is
with the four people.
Yeah, that's called A Common Thread. Of course, I was influenced by Gustav Klimt when I did this piece, and it's got gold leaf in it. What's happening in the painting is a golden thread comes down from heaven. When it gets to the African man, it makes an African design on his clothing, jumps off of him and goes to the Asian woman and makes an Oriental design on her clothing, jumps off of her onto the white woman and makes a Celtic design on her clothing. Then it goes back up to the Native American and makes an Indian design on his clothing, goes back up to the African's shoulder and goes back up to heaven. And they're all holding a candle that represents the spirit of God in their life. And the reason why this painting is significant, it's the longest painting I have ever worked on. This painting took me 22 years to complete. And the reason why it took me 22 years to complete,
holy moly,
because every time I love the design of it and I wanted to get the thing finished. But while I was working on it, I came up against a problem with the hair on the Native American. At first, his hair looked like he was a Navajo Indian, but I could never get the hairstyle right. So I didn't know what to do. So I put it away and worked on other stuff. 5 years later, I pull it back out and say, doggone, I'm gonna fix this problem. And I figured it out and I changed the hairstyle on the Native American and then started working on it, trying to get it done. And then I ran into another problem. Couldn't figure out what to do, put it away. 5 years later, pull it out, said, doggone it, I'm trying to fix it. And that's what happened. That was the process. That's why it took me so long to get the thing done. But I knew I needed to get it done because I knew it was a good design. And I'm so glad I did, because it really is one of my favorite pieces.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And you know, one of the things I love about narrative pieces of art like this is is the story that you're telling with it, you know, with the thread coming from heaven and touching them all, the candle representing the Spirit of God, and then the thread going back up from the people to God. It's just, yeah, you can just stare at this piece and just, you know, meditate on it, you know, and really use it as almost like a devotional. And that's one of the things that I love about, you know, that I try to accomplish in my art is I try to make art that is a devotional to God.
Okay.
And, you know, I like to incorporate my faith in my art in those ways. And I paint, I do illuminations with a combination of text, gold leaf, and narrative pieces. And, but that's one of the things that strikes me about a lot of your work, especially your faith-based work. It does have that devotional feel to it that gets the mind going. It makes you start thinking about different things. On that note, I'm going to show another. This is one of your much older pieces. And this one, I believe, right here.
Oh, Coat of Many Colors, Lord of All.
Coat of Many Colors. And I just love it for a couple of reasons. It's got a good, you know, it's got a good Canadian maple leaf flag in there. So, you know, that's my heritage. And then of course the American flag, because America is awesome. And then, but you've got all these other nations in there. It's just amazing. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, a friend of mine, Ron DeCiani, started a division at a company called Day Spree Greeting Card Company. It was a Christian company that did greeting cards and stuff. He started a division where he was doing prints, Christian prints. And I think he had the first #1 selling Christian print in that particular company. And he brought me on and he said, you know, I want you to be a part of this. So I said, well, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to paint. He said, I don't know, you go to God. So I prayed about it. And God gave me the painting Forgiven. Forgiven to this day is probably the most famous painting I've done. And God has done so much with that painting. I mean, the #1 thing I would hear when that painting was in the bookstores, people would actually come into the bookstore, see the painting, fall to their knees in the bookstore, crying in front of the painting. I heard that so many times, it became common to me because everybody would tell me that. And I'd go, yeah, I know. These paintings have an anointing on them, which I have nothing to do. This is something God has done with my artwork and stuff. And so after I did Forgiven, the next painting was Coat of Many Colors, Lord of All. Now this one, the approach on this one was a lot different than Forgiven, because Forgiven, I actually prayed for the painting and God gave me the painting and I saw the painting before I painted it. On this one, I kind of had to work through this one the way I do on a normal illustration job and stuff. And did a lot of research on different textiles and patterns from different nations, flags, and put them all together. And that's how I came up with Coat of Many Colors, Lord of All. A lot of people asked me, they said, well, I don't see this nation or I don't see this pattern in there. Where is it? You know, and I said, oh, it's on the back. So anyway, so, and then after that, there was a painting I did called Watchers in the Night, which was a painting of a child sleeping in the bed with an angel watching over.
And that's this one here.
Yeah. And I even had stories about that painting. The biggest story I had on that one was a woman came into a bookstore and told this story about how for a week, her little boy, she would find him at the foot of her bed, sleeping on her bed. I guess she was a single mom. And she was like, well, why do you keep coming into my bedroom, sleeping on my bed? And he was saying, I can't get to sleep. And she said, why not? He said, that man keeps coming into my room. And she saw my what man? So she thought he was dreaming until they went into a Christian bookstore. And she was trying to get something. He saw something. He came and grabbed her by the hand. Mama, you got to see this. Got to see this painting. Grabbed her and took her to my painting and said, that's him. That's him. That's the man.
Oh, wow.
Who comes into my bedroom. And the people who were working at the bookstore said what was so weird about it was the little boy looked like the little boy in the painting.
Oh, my goodness.
So stuff like that has happened with my paintings. There's another painting I did that would blow people's minds. It was a painting I did of the Statue of Liberty. It was called Liberty. Statue of Liberty, close up of the Statue of Liberty. You see her face and she's got a tear coming down her eye. And behind her, Jesus is coming down in the clouds. It took me forever to get that painting done. I was supposed to have the painting done in about three months. It took me a year and a half to complete the painting.
Wow.
And I had never been delayed on a deadline that long. I mean, ridiculous. I mean, I've never even been delayed on a deadline for what 3 months or anything like that or anything, but for a year and a half. But anyway, people who saw the painting kept telling me, Thomas, you need to finish that painting. I feel God's telling me you need to get the thing done. Went ahead, got the painting done. They printed it in the summer. It got to the bookstores in New York City the week before 9/11 hit.
Oh my goodness.
And I realized that's why that painting was delayed, because it had to be delayed so that it could hit the bookstores right at the right time when the week before 9/11 hit. So, I mean, so a lot of stuff like that has happened with my artwork. So for all them people out there who don't believe that God exists,
yeah,
that's all I got to say. So.
Yeah, and that, and that's the other thing, for the influence, when God uses you to touch other people, it's a powerful thing. And art has a way of touching people. Art is such a, it's hard to explain unless you experience art, but art touches people on a very emotional, deep spiritual way. And it's a way that they connect, that they're God working through the artist, and then the viewer has their own personal, everything that's going on in their life, and they see that image, and it's like this bond between the artist, the painting, and the viewer, and then you get God involved, and powerful things can happen.
It's interesting that you would say that, because there was a period in my life back in the early 80s, middle to late 80s. God actually taught me exactly what you're talking about. He let me know, I'm going to teach you about art, and I'm going to teach you that there is a life underneath the surface of a canvas. And I'm going to teach you about that. He told me all this stuff, taught me. Then he said, now I'm going to show it to you. And he showed me, blew my mind.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's like, I always go back to, in the book of Exodus, the first artist, Bezalel and Oholiab, and God said, I gave them these skills, and they're masters of every craft, and they're going to build all of, it's like when God wanted to build his place, his tabernacle, he got a bunch of artists, and he told Moses, you go get those artists, because I ain't going to use them to give a word picture, a visual representation of my glory on this earth, and I'm going to do it through them. And he said that always inspired me as an artist. It's like God loves artists.
Yeah, he's a creator. He even said, I have given them wisdom.
Yes.
So, and like I said, I don't take the credit for a lot of the stuff that he does, or the artwork that I do and stuff, because I know where it comes from. I've met so many good artists in my life that are incredible, that I can't sit there and act like, oh yeah, well, yes, I get that. No, I know where it comes from. And so, I just do the best I can do, and just leave the rest to him. So that's what I do.
Right. When it comes to art, one of the things that, like, the way I view myself as an artist in relation to my faith is, you remember the movie Chariots of Fire?
Yeah.
That's a true story. And the main character, his last name is Liddell. I can't remember the first name of the character, but his family were missionaries in China.
Yeah.
But he wanted to race in the Olympics, and his family was not happy about that. Yeah. They thought that he was basically chasing after worldly glory. And so that was a very unchristian thing to do. Yeah. And there's a scene in the movie where his sister comes to talk him out of it and bring him back home to China to be a missionary. And he has a conversation with her. And one of the things he said was, yes, I have a purpose to spread the gospel in China as a missionary, but God also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure.
Yeah.
And when I'm painting, when I'm sitting at the easel, when I'm drawing, and when I'm creating art, I feel my creator's pleasure because he's watching me do that thing that he put in me. And to me, it then becomes this very intimate way to worship him that only I can worship him, because other people draw and other people paint, but they don't do it exactly the way that I do. They don't do it exactly the way that you do it. And then it becomes this act of worship that's very intimate. And I look at it like when your kids, when they're really little and they make you a card for your birthday or for Christmas, and it's got glitter and it's all messy, and you take that card is more important and more great than any other gift you get. And it goes on the fridge and it's there decades later. That magnet is still holding that thing. And so it's like our artwork sometimes I feel is, when we go to heaven, we're going to see God's refrigerator and all our pictures are going to be on the fridge, and that's kind of the way I look at faith and art for me personally as an artist. That it's a very intimate thing. God put it in you, and when you do it, it pleases him. Yeah.
I know a lot of times when I'm working on a painting and he will do something while I'm working on the painting, through the painting, that will blow my mind. And I'm just going, whoa. A lot of people sitting there saying, "Oh, Thomas Blackshear, you're just the greatest artist ever." They just don't have a clue, man. I mean, yeah, I do okay, but there's a lot of stuff that just is done in the process of me painting that I have nothing to do with. And I'm like, whoa, because it even surprises me sometimes. I'm like, wow, okay, thank you, Lord. So yeah.
That's fantastic. That's what I love about. Now you also, because if I don't show this right now, my buddy Tony he's gonna come he will literally come in here and whoop me. So I gotta show this off because my buddy Tony, live in Colorado, and he posed for one of your sculptures that you did. And when he found out that I was interviewing you, he lost his biscuits. He was so excited, and he showed me this picture. So I'm going to show this picture of him, and he don't look like this now. he was like in his maybe 20s when he posed for this, but he's still in really good shape. But he's still old. He's still old. Let's show this off real quick. This is one of your sculptures because you do sculpture as well, and just an amazing set of sculptures as well.
Well, and I have to admit, I do sculpt, and I do sculpture. But for Ebony Visions, what happened, the sculpture line got so popular so quickly. The company came to me and asked me, would you mind just designing the sculptures and let somebody else sculpt them? Because, you can't design them and sculpt them at the same time. It just takes too much time. And so I agreed to do that. I agreed to do that. So this particular sculpture, and quite a few, most of the sculpture done for Ebony Visions was done by a student of mine. He was in my illustration class when I was teaching at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. His name is Mark Newman, and he's an amazing sculptor. And we partnered together, and I would design them and he would sculpt most of the pieces. And so this is one of the ones he had done. And like I said, he's an incredible sculptor and stuff like that.
Nice. So, yeah. Now, my friend Tony apparently is the guy holding the toucan.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
So, Tony, if you're watching, and I know you are, there you are, my friend. There you are. You taught at AAU?
Yeah.
I went to AAU. So that's where I got my master's degree.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. So man, I could have had you as well. Now, mind you, I went 2010 to 2015. So I don't know if you were still teaching.
Oh, no. 2010. No. I think I taught around 1996, 95, 94, 95, 96. I think
that was, I had just gotten out of the military then. And I started working in the comic book industry.
Okay.
And also had an airbrush shop on the west end of Panama City Beach.
Okay.
And so that's where we, it's pretty cool. But I went to AAU and I got my degree there. So it's cool that you were a teacher at my alma mater. That's really neat. So That's pretty cool. Well, let me show your website off because I think everybody needs to check you out some more. ThomasBlackshearArt.com is your website, and that is the way that they can get in touch with you. I could talk to you for 300 years. I'm telling you what, we need to get you back on the show because there's a lot of things that I want to talk to you, but we are out of time.
Yeah, I mean, it did go by pretty quick, that's for sure.
It does, stupid clock, I'll tell you what, so I definitely am going to be staying in touch with you, and I definitely want to have you back on the show. And we really, really appreciate you coming on, sharing your wisdom. I'm thinking of all kinds of new shows to have you on and what we could talk about and technique and different things. So, because I would love to have you share more about like the technique that you use, the paints that you use, the brushes you use, get more into the techniques. And I think that people will just eat that up. So we'll call this our welcome episode, and then we'll go into another one here coming up that'll be even deeper. But thank you very much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. Stay on the line. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and then I'll come back on and chat with you real quick.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you. All right, guys. Oh my gosh, it was Thomas Blackshear. Holy cow. I'm a little excited, but wow, that was such a great thing. He really did. In my life, in my art career, one of the big art heroes of my life. You saw his art. It's absolutely phenomenal. And we didn't even get to show all of the art that I wanted to show. But speaking of art, guys, we have got a big thing coming up. As some of you know, starting next week, starting on the 27th of November, we are beginning our big Advent fundraiser. And so I'm going to play a video here real quick to show you about our Advent fundraiser. It starts this coming Friday, a week from today. We're going to have our first episode. And that'll be like just to tell you everything that's going to happen and how you can be involved and what you can do. And then on the 29th, which is a special Sunday night episode, it is the literal beginning of the Advent season. We're going to have with us Michelle Dunaway, a fabulous, amazing artist. I can't wait to have her on again. And she's going to be sharing her painting, and we're going to be talking about the first week of Advent. So with that said, guys, I'm going to share this with you right now. The main project we are working on here at the Gagnon Atelier is the Illuminated Messiah Art Exhibit and Bible. It's a series of 66 original paintings depicting Jesus from every book in the Bible. These paintings will be displayed in a traveling art exhibit and also collected as an illuminated manuscript Bible. During this year's Advent season on the Modern Masters podcast, we will be auctioning off original oil paintings created by 4 of today's top artists: Michelle Dunaway, Frank Ordez, Joyful Enriquez, and Anna Rose Bain. Each painting a visual devotion celebrating the advent of our coming Savior, auctioned off to raise funds for the Illuminated Messiah Bible's printing. In every episode, we will interview the artist about that week of Advent, the devotional scripture, and how it impacted their painting. And of course, you will have the opportunity to bid in the auction for your chance to win one of the paintings. Be sure to tune into the Modern Masters podcast during the 2020 Advent season, November 29th to December 18th, live on Facebook and YouTube. The Gagnon Atelier is a 501c3 nonprofit art advocacy ministry, and all auction bids are tax deductible. All right, guys. Well, there you go. That is our Advent special that is coming up. It's going to last the whole month of December, but we're actually starting the last week of November. So it goes from the 27th which is our first episode. And it will go all the way pretty much almost to Christmas Eve. And you will be able to bid and own 4 of these paintings, 1 of 4 or all 4, whatever you want to do. But this is a huge opportunity to get a piece of artwork from 4 of today's top artists. I'm really excited about that. So again, guys, as always, if you could do me a favor, if you could like this page, if you can subscribe to us on YouTube, I would really appreciate it. But remember, guys, as always, God loves you, and so does your old pal Tim. We'll talk to you next time.